I'm Todd Kaufman. I'm the lead trainer at the Workshop Clinic, where we teach a series of really practical courses to therapists and doctors, psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and social workers and social service workers, and anyone else who's interested in continuing education training, which is really practical, skill-based, and can make a difference in the way they do their work. And when we get all of these people together, we often have some really engaging conversations. And invariably, the conversation turns to a really effective method of making change in your client or your patient's life called reframing. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time sharing some of the wisdom from those conversations that we've had in our classes at the Workshop Clinic. We are our stories. Our stories are what defines us. Our stories are what we expect in our life, and our stories are what we live out. And the stories to which we are most deeply connected, that hold our beliefs, that help us become or make us become who we are the ones that we are most deeply emotionally connected to. The stories that you remember, if you think about it, it's the stories that were full of color and emotion and took you on a journey that connected with your emotions. And now I tell you this because so many modalities that we use are they're very top down. They start with logical presuppositions that if perhaps the thought is wrong and we unpack it, that all of this logic will help us become a different person. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which can be very, very powerful in many circumstances, is gold standard for almost everything, is one of those top-down therapies. The anxiety release protocol is a bottom-up therapy, which we use to end panic attacks and manage anxiety. But thread through all of this is reframing. And reframing is the capacity to help your client or your patient commit to changing their story and living a different story, holding that intentionality, because intentionality creates reality. I'm an anxiety specialist. I get tons of clients that come through my door who have been sent by other types of doctors or therapists as their hard to manage anxiety case. And when they sit down in my office and the initial pleasantries are over, I will often look at them and I will say, "So what brings you here?" And they will frequently, with a deep emotional commitment, say something like, "My doctor tells me I'm clinically depressed." Or, "I've got a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder." And because I want to change that story, I want them to change that story, I will often respond with this simply magic question. "So, how do you feel about that label?" And I'll let it sit. Because I want to connect to their emotions, because I know if I'm going to get them to change a story, it has to be a story that connects to them emotionally, connects to their feelings and their understanding. Now, there's various ways to proceed from that opening statement, for instance. But let me give you one such example. I had a woman come in who was experiencing really, really high anxiety. And she told me these horrific stories about being at work and having meltdowns and her hand shaking and her heart beating and all of these things that happen to her physiologically. Now, we deal with all of this in the anxiety release protocol, but today it's just a conversation about reframing. And so I asked her, I said, "What did that, how big did that feel?" And she said, "Oh, it's huge." I said, no, show me. Like, is it this big? Is it this big? I wanted her to somatically express that. And she spread her arms as wide as she could say, "It's this big." And I said, "Wow, that's a massive amount of energy." And she said, "It certainly is." And I said to her, "What if that energy worked for you instead of against you?" What if you could turn all that energy into your, and she finished my sentence and said to me this, superpower? I said, yeah. So what if anxiety was your superpower? And I saw a small crack of a smile. In fact, I had learned that she had just watched the Wonder Woman movie and it was top of mind. And as you'll find in your therapy sessions, often you just sort of like connect with the right thing in the room. And it was, in fact, where I was going was, what if your anxiety could be your superpower? And she loved this story. She was emotionally committed to having this new story. So we went back and we worked through the anxiety release protocol with the goal of developing her superpower. And her change was both profound and it was quick. Now, normally with ARP, within 5 to 10 sessions, we've ended the panic attacks, we've got the anxiety under control, but this is one such example where the reframing of the story, being able to connect to the emotionally, not logically, but to be able to connect with them emotionally in a story, was a story that they could buy as their own and could help them reframe and recreate a new life based on a new story. This is one of the great conversations that we get to have during our workshops. I hope you join us someday in one of our workshops. And I'm sure somewhere around the video, there's a place that you can click to learn more about the anxiety release protocol and others. And thank you for bringing this to my attention and asking me to give you a little bit of a video on it. I hope I enjoyed it, or I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you very soon in one of our workshops. Have an awesome day.